Alright guys, Mr. Cubic here. Again, this is like the last one of our video, last countdown, 5 more and we're done. So a week from tomorrow, so May 13th will be your last video. So we have a test this Friday, test next Friday, and we have, including this, 5 videos in a short 15 to 20 minutes. 4 videos. We're done. Still have some Zoom, but unfortunately I wish I could hang out with you guys, especially today. I'm not going to lie to you. My favorite lecture, period. I give it every year. I just love it, right? So basically, I just kind of, I don't know, it's like, to me, it's a little what if, right? So this is a little deal here. So it takes everything we've learned this year. Everything. Okay? Everything we learned, and we are going to need it in one sitting. So, I'm going to get rid of me, and we are going to have just you and the math. And it's going to be awesome! Alright, so, here's how I start. I start with the quadratic equation. So, not the quadratic formula. Alright, that would be silly. I start off with just the quadratic equation. Okay? So, I am going to say ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Everything I learned this year, I'm going to need today, right? So, I know that a doesn't equal 0. Why doesn't a equal 0, right? Today I'd probably have about 7 hands up because I went over it again yesterday. And you would say, because then that would drop out and I wouldn't have a quadratic. So in other words, the whole reason it's a quadratic is, right, that it has an exponent of 2. If it has an exponent of 1, it's a line, right? That's something that like the 4th and 5th graders can solve. This is algebra. This is a quadratic. Okay? So I'd like to solve this. All right, so I don't know, I just kind of was thinking, I think it'd be kind of cool if we applied the ode to completing the square here. So in other words, what if I take the quadratic equation and I complete the square? Right? So, it used to be a very famous Marvel comic book called What If. I think actually somebody is... Maybe Disney's sort of bringing it back. Like, what if, I don't know, so-and-so got caught up in this, or what if Phoenix hadn't died, or, they just kind of go over all these different things, and they show you, like, an alternate universe that might happen. All right, so this is, I'm going to say, well, what if I take ax squared plus bx plus c, and I complete the square, okay? All right, so that's kind of like what I'm seeing, all right? So, here's the first line here. So, I'd say this is line 1. I'm going to do this in pencil. That's right. Right, so that's line 1 is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So, that brings me to line 2. Alright, so, line. This is going to be limey line. Limey line. You're allowed to use limey on my desk. Right? So, with a at 1. Okay? So I currently have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And I want a to be 1. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to divide everything by a. Am I allowed to do that? Yeah, I am allowed to do that. But okay, I have to do it to everything. So, after I've divided everything by a, I get x squared plus, and I probably would write this just as b over ax, plus c over a equals 0. Okay? So I told you, everything we learned, right? So I'm allowed to divide, but I have to divide everything, right? So I'm going to distribute that division. And after I have my first step, I have x squared plus b over ax plus c over a equals 0. Okay? So that I'm going to call, right, line 3, just so I can know where I am. Okay, so with a at 1, right? So hopefully your brain, you're shouting out at home like Blue's Clues, right? And C removed, right? So little ellipsis, right? And C remove id. Okay, so C is currently C over A, so I need to remove that C over A, not just the C. So what am I going to do? I am going to subtract C over A from both sides. Okay? And I get x squared plus b over A equals minus, x equals minus C over A. Okay, so let me scroll up there. By scroll up, I mean push the piece of paper up a little bit. Okay, so this is step 4. X squared plus b over ax equals negative C over A. Okay? I mean, it's funny because I just like 2 seconds ago, right, I was up here, right? So it's still the quadratic equation. I just kind of monkeyed around with it, okay? So what did I do? I divided everything by A, right? Then I subtracted C over A from both sides, and that got me to here. Okay? Now, the next line, and I'm going to do this one in pink, and I'm going to call a timeout. I don't know if you knew that you're allowed to call timeout, right? Is, all right, take half of b and square and add. All right? So, the reason I put b as a capital, right, is because it's not the same b that I started with. It's not the little b, right? So right now, all right, and I'm going to go through this slow, I'm going to call a timeout, okay? So, timeout. Timeout. Okay, so, all right, B is currently B over 2A. Well, that makes sense, right? So half of B, and I've been trying to explain this to you, right? But half of B, whenever you see of, it's times. It would be 1/2, right? I'm sorry, B over A. B is B over A. It would be 1/2 times B over A, which would be B over 2A. So half of B squared is going to be B over 2A quantity squared, which is going to be, and this is where you're going to hate me, B squared over 4A squared. Okay, so again, and I had a typo on my derivation, so I'll scratch that out. So my timeout, right, is I have B equals B over A, right? So that's what B was in the state of my thing, okay? And then I want half of B, take half of B, of is times, half, right, times B over A is B over 2A, right? And then half of B squared would be B over 2A quantity squared, which is B over 2A times B over 2A, which is B squared over 4A squared. Okay? Now, Time in. All right, so here we go. All right. What am I going to do? All right. I'm going to take half of b and square and add. So what am I going to do is I am going to add, and this is really important, okay? This comes from my timeout. I'm going to add b squared over 4a squared to both sides. So I'm going to do this with two colors. So I currently have x squared plus b over ax equals minus c over a. And I am going to add b squared over 4a squared to both sides. Okay? Do you guys see that? Right? So this would be step 5. Right? So that's the state of affairs. Now I'm not going to lie to you. Okay? This is just ugly. Right? I mean, it's just not good. It's not wholesome. So I'm going to try and clean this up. So I'm going to take another timeout. I don't know why I didn't write TO. Hold on a second. Timeout. All right. And we're going to do a little cleanup. Okay. So, just so you guys understand, I have minus c over a plus b squared over 4a squared. I'm telling you, you need to know everything, right? So in order for me to add these, the first thing I have to find is a common denominator. So I'm going to multiply by 4a over 4a. So I get minus 4ac over 4a squared plus b squared over 4a squared. Right? Which means that I get, okay, common denominator. So my denominator is 4a squared. Okay? And my numerator is minus 4ac plus b squared. I just don't like using all those symbols. So I think it's, we've talked about the less symbols I use, the better. So I think it'd be easier just to remember b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. Right? So I think that would just be an easier thing for us to remember. Okay? So hold on. Hold on. I'm going to do this while you can watch me do it live. Time in. All right, so I am going to take what I just found, okay, and I am going to put it back in. Okay? I am going to put it back into the equation. So after I've done what I just did, I'm going to use 3 colors here just so you guys can understand. Okay? So I have x squared plus, okay, b over a x plus, this isn't all going to fit, this is kind of bad by me, alright, and I'm going to go with black, right, so b squared over 4ac, or a squared, right, that is equal to, okay, b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. Okay? That's where I am right now. So I'm going to call that equation 6, and I'm going to actually go to a fresh sheet of paper. I could jam it in, but I don't like the fact that I had to do that. Okay? So we're on equation 6. Okay, there's a fresh sheet of white paper. And there I have the corner, so I have the world is mine. So line 6, okay, is x squared minus b over ax plus b squared minus 4a squared equals b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. Still line 6, nothing changed. Everything's been cleaned up. Alright, so with a at 1 and c removed, take half of b and square and add. So here we go. Oh my gosh. The square so formed, we now express. How do you know this is a perfect square, right? Well, that's what completing the square is, right? So that's exactly what we wanted. All right, so what do I do here? All right, remember, everybody gives me something. So I'm going to go slow just so you can see, okay? Everybody gives me something, right? So what do you give me, Mr. X squared, right? I give you my X, right? And what do you give me, right? Minus B over AX, right? Oh, he doesn't give me the minus. I give you my minus. And what do you give me? B squared over 4A squared, right? I give you my square root, which is b over 2a. Okay? So this squared, x minus b over 2a squared, is equal to b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. Okay? So this would be line 7. Alright, now a lot of you guys out there, I know there's a lot of doubters out there. Like, what are you talking about, Mr. Cubic? Are you going to honestly try and tell me that x minus b over 2a squared is equal to x squared minus b over ax plus b squared over 4a squared? Is that what you're going to try and tell me? Well, let's just see. X minus b over 2a quantity squared is x minus b over 2a times x minus b over 2a. Now, this is a FOIL problem. Now, I'd say there are quite a few shady individuals on the last test that decided this was mental math and just told me the answer. But most mortal men who breathe air and cannot fly would do this using the FOIL method. So x times x is x squared. X times b over 2a negative minus b over 2ax, right? Then minus b over 2a times x is minus b over 2a times x, right? And here, right, b times b is b squared, 2 times 2 is 4, a times a is a squared, negative times a negative is a positive. So this gives me x squared minus 2 b over 2ax plus b squared over 4a squared, right? And just so you know, a cow plus a cow is 2 cows. That's where that 2 came from. So this guy cancels this guy, and I get x squared minus b over ax plus b squared over 4a squared. So yes, that is true, right? True dat. It's been proven. It's been shown, right? Now, back to reality. The square so formed, we now express. Things are about to get hairy, okay? Then d root. I'm running out of colors. I'm going to go with red. Then d root. Then d root. The neologism invented by Father Aloysius Galvin, S.J. So the square root of x minus b over 2a quantity squared equals the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. absolute value of x minus b over 2a equals, let's make this into a radical over a radical, right? So this is going to be the square root of b squared minus 4ac over the square root of 4a squared. I don't know what that crap is, but I know that this is b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Whew! I'm just taking a deep breath, just in wonder. I mean, look how far we've come. I think you see something a little bit familiar developing on the right-hand side. I don't want to spoil it. But it's coming. It's coming. Right? Because, again, you have to know everything that we learned this year. Well, how the heck am I going to get inside of there? Bifurcate. Right? So, x minus b over 2a. I'm sorry, I want to label that last one. This we'll say is step 8. Right? Is equal to plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Right? I can call that step 9, just so I can finish this in 10. Right? Well, how am I going to solve? Well, I would maybe add b over 2a to both sides. And I get x equals, I messed something up here. I know what I messed up. Damn me. This is a plus. Do you see? This was a plus. So this is a plus. This was a plus. This was a plus. This was a plus. This is a plus. This is a minus. So I get x equals minus b plus or minus this. Minus b over 2a plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Right? And then from there, that gives me to step 10. And this is it. You all know what I'm about to write. If I do that, I get x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. This is the greatest day. Everything that we needed this year is done. I'm going to stop this because it got boring. And then I'm going to go through slow, or I'm go through and fast forward off of my notes, and I'm going to scan my notes in and post these for you to look at while I go over it. Okay? Dude, I'm so excited. I messed up at the end. That kind of bummed me out. This is not here. But I think you understood the spirit. All right. Peace out. Talk to you in a minute.